Good evening, sorry, wrong day. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Community Project Information Session. My name is Stella McQuiston, and I am the LYP coordinator at this fine school. And I'm just going to we'll just have people do some quick introductions before we get started, okay?
I'm Libby Rocaboy. I work in the Division of Accelerated Enriched Instruction, and I support Stella and all the IB schools in the county.
I'm Molly Doherty. I'm the 8th grade team lead at Sims, and I definitely support Stella with the project.
And we have operating the heavy machinery.
I'm on tech duty tonight, folks. Hi, I'm Doug Nelson. I'm one of the assistant principals here, and I will be back here filming this. We will have this available for any parents who have not made it tonight. So if you hear anyone out in the community asking for the information from tonight's information session, please let them know that it will be made available to them soon through video. So glad you came out tonight. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. So we wanted to start you guys off with a little activator. On your chair, there is an index card. And we wanted you to do some thinking just to set our night off correctly. The activator question is, what community have you ever been a part of, and how did you give back to that community? So just think about that, and if you could, jot that down, and we'll have some people share out based on what you wrote down on your index card, okay? So while you're still thinking, I know Lynn wanted to speak to you briefly regarding the fact that we will do at the end of this session a way to collect information from you guys regarding supporting all of our students in the community project. And Lynn wanted to talk to you briefly about that before we continue with our presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Lynn Harris and I am your proud PTSA president. I'm also an 8th grade parent. And I'm also finishing my 3rd year as the parent representative on the instructional leadership team. So I've had the real privilege and honor actually of working with all of our instructional leaders at Sims for the past 3 years and the past 2 years in the process that's led to the development of this new revamped rethinking of this community project that our 8th graders are going to be working on this year. And I have 2 very important things that I want to ask all of you to do to help support the work of the PTSA and the work of our 8th graders this year. One of them is I pledged to our MYP team that we would create a vibrant, active, deep, rich database of mentors and experts just within our community to support all of our students in their projects. So no matter what issue or area a group of students decides they want to drill down on and really come up with a community-focused project around, they can see that when they're told to go and research that project and really dig down into it, it means a lot more than running to the media center and asking Ms. Hack for help. But that everybody around them is an expert in something, and all of you are experts in many things, and we are going to ask you to please be willing to share your expertise with the students. We're going to create a database of individuals who have indicated an area or areas of experience or expertise that they are willing to share with these students, so that if a student goes in and decides that they really want to work on a project related to saving the whales, they can look through that database and they can find somebody that works at NOAA, that knows that's a marine biologist, that spent 3 years working on a whaling ship in the South China Sea. So that's the kind of information that we want to collect from you. Not just what your degree is in or what your job is, but areas of expertise that you have from your experience in your avocation. If you're a master gardener, we want to know that. If you are an expert at building model airplanes, if you spent 2 years trekking in Nepal after college, that is all rich experience that can benefit our students if you are willing to share it with them. So I'm just asking all of you to please be willing to join that database with whatever areas of expertise you're willing to share. And even if that's just, I work at the Discovery Channel, and I'm willing to be a conduit. If a student thinks there might be people at the Discovery Channel that can help them, I'm willing to connect them. If that's, even that is a huge boon to our students. So that, I'm gonna ask all of you to please consider signing up for that resource. There's gonna be a link on our PTSA website, multiple ways that you can provide us with that information. But please, please, please consider doing that. The second thing is, Molly Doherty is our 8th grade team leader this year. She is wonderful, she is fabulous. If your child's ever, she is wonderful and fabulous. So if your kid's ever taken lights, camera, literacy, or anything like that, you know how wonderful and fabulous she is. But we need more 8th grade parents to join us. We have one 8th grade vice president on our PTSA. We all know, if you've ever had an 8th grader before, the 8th grade year, there's so much going on. There's a lot that happens at the end of the year, trips and ceremonies and all that kind of stuff, but there's all kinds of interesting things going on throughout the year that we really want to support. We really want to make this the best year ever for our 8th graders. I need you to step up and say, I can do this year to help our 8th graders. And if that's just, I can help with the 8th grade promotion ceremony in June, fabulous. If that's whatever the end of the year trip is, I want to be part of that. That's great too. If you have other areas other things that you want to work on with our 8th graders throughout the year, we really need some more 8th grade parents to step up. So I'm going to put a plea out on the listserv. If you just respond to me if you're willing to do anything related to supporting the work of our great 8th grade team this year, we would love you forever.
Really appreciate it.
That's it. I'm done.
Thank you. And one more announcement. So if we have an interpreter here, so is there anyone who might need that service, we're just going to have you
In
Spanish. Just have you report to the back. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So now back to our activator. All right. Were there any thoughts about a community that you've been a part of before and how you gave back to that community that anyone wants to share out? Yeah.
My daughter and I, since she was in the 6th grade, we've been giving back to the Trinidad area in DC. We work with the City Center Charter School, 2nd and 3rd graders providing enrichment in math and in reading.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Another, yes?
So this year, I have, but Nasir has assisted. He did the, but I've been working with a partner and going to, I guess it's impoverished neighborhoods. One in DC, and we did a show in DC, and then one in Maryland where we're doing fashion shows to kind of empower young girls and showing them how to dress in the latest fashion, but not have to be exposed. So we've done 2 fashion shows to Save Our Girls. So I've done that this year, one in May and the other one this month.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
I do have the chapters in Andy, so I actually been
Oh.
working this year with their inaugural PG. So we have a meeting coming up in the next month or so for the last of 4 houses that we renovated.
Very good. And I can safely assume that all of these outreach programs that you're a part of, that there's meaning behind that in terms of what it does for you.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so I wanted us to start off with this activator because we do know that this year is a change. You guys are all pretty much familiar with the project called the Passion Project. But this year and moving forward, the shift is now on a community need and serving an aspect of the community, all right? Students actually researching an issue in society. It could be in a great or local community. It could be a national community. It could be a global community. And actually looking at that need and determining how can they take action and how can they grow from taking that action as well too, okay? So, as an IB school, every year, 8th graders are required to complete the community project. And the reason why we've shifted from the passion project is because IB states that the 8th graders are to focus on a community issue, okay? So before we had this passion project, and we had the passion project primarily because at the time IB hadn't stated that we had to focus on a community need, and so SSI created this project that we thought would be a great culminating project for our 8th graders. One where they can research their interests, research a passion, make something, learn something about that, and then showcase that information to the community. All of that work is still valid. The only change is that the focus is now on a community need, right? So your passion can be on a community issue. However, in this particular project, we're telling students that there has to be a particular need that you are trying to address. And that need is rooted in research. You've done research to come up with the fact that this is a need that's plaguing this particular community, and I'm going to plan to address it, and then I'm actually going to address it by taking action and reflect about the entire process throughout, okay? I also want to say to you that you have a white staple handout, and that white staple handout, that's for you to take notes as you need based on tonight's presentation, okay?
So I'm going to add too, in the IB, in the middle years program, 2 schools end at an 8th grade level. So SSI and Newport Mill end at 8th grade. The other schools move on to finish out their year 4 and 5, 9th and 10th grade at a high school, and they do what is called a personal project. So that's where IB came in and defined the differences between what the expectations are in 8th grade and what they are in 10th grade. So Newport Mill also will do a community project, and in the high schools that finish 9th and 10th grade year with the middle years program do the personal project. So if you hear the difference between the schools, that's why.
So again, what is a community project? So the project focuses on community and service, and so IB recognizes that, you know, in 8th grade, we recognize that academics are important, but IB also says that giving back to the community is equally as important, all right? The fact that students recognize that they have a right and a responsibility to give back to the community, and that's the focus of where this project is all about, okay? It gives students an understanding of the fact that there are issues beyond them. There are issues that go beyond where we live, and how can we investigate those issues, and what can we do as citizens of this global society to actually have impact on those particular issues, okay? So how are we going to be supporting students through the community project? Last year, we had a structure called AIM. And in AIM, twice a month for 45 minutes, the 8th graders received some type of instruction regarding how to complete the community project. So it was only the 8th grade teachers that participated in this particular type of instruction. What we found out was that a lot of our class sizes were way too large, and it was hard to give individualized attention to students and to give them the type of personal and thoughtful attention and opportunities for reflection that was needed in order for them to truly think about what they're doing and how their project will impact society. So as a leadership team, we came back and we thought of a different structure where we could make the class and the group sizes a lot smaller so that students can be working with a staff member in the school to get this particular attention, and that we are making sure that as much as possible the opportunities for reflection, as much as possible the opportunities to talk to students, to really drill down on what they want to do and the steps that they're taking to actually get that done, that they're being thoughtful and we can actually monitor something like that. So what we have is, this year, the entire staff will serve as coaches for all of our 8th grade students. So 6th grade teachers, 7th grade teachers, 8th grade teachers, even our principal, our assistant principals, the entire staff members will coach a small group of 8th grade students. So what will happen is, beginning in quarter two, staff members will use, we have JAG time, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with that time period. We'll use a consistent JAG time to pull their small group of 8th grade students to actually work with them and provide a level of coaching for the community project, okay? During quarter one, this quarter, a lot of our staff members have gotten training on what it means to be a coach, how to use the IB rubrics to guide students through this work so that as much as possible they can coach with the knowledge of what's expected when students do this project. So coaching will take place throughout quarters 2 and 3. The projects are due at the beginning of quarter 4. We expect that around April, that's going to be the time period where we're going to have presentations and a showcase opportunity for the parents as well. Okay, so we're trying to move from a bigger setting like we had last year to a smaller setting where we can provide as much support whole school-wide with this community project. It is a community project, and the entire community at SSI is definitely involved in this project this year. Okay?
So the skills that you see up here right now, they're skills that everybody needs in life, right? So they're called the Approaches to Thinking and Learning Skills in the IB. They're in the elementary school IB program all the way to the diploma program. So the ATL skills, that's what we call them, are the skills that are throughout all subject areas. So your students should be familiar with these skills and taught explicitly through the skills in their content. This is a time in the community project now where these skills will give them independence, right? So we're going to see these skills and how do they work with these skills independently and in a group. They may look familiar to you if you remember your student in the Curriculum 2.0, the thinking and academic success skills. They're the same skills. They're life skills that we think about where we're building thinking, critical and creative thinking. They're in social settings and working collaboratively. How do they use self-management, time management, and then how are they using their research skills? And that communication is key. That's speaking and listening, right? And it's also their school improvement plan here at SSI, thinking about communication across the board. So these skills are skills that they're going to use throughout the project, now independently within their passion or whatever they're taking on, but they're also skills that will build throughout their content areas from 6th grade to 8th grade. The project is broken down to 4 criterion. Investigating, so thinking about what do they want to evaluate, what do they want to take on, what is their passion, what are they thinking is important to them as a learner. And they're going to think about them as individuals and then as a group of probably 3 students. And then they're going to think about that and come up to consensus with what do they really want to take on for this community project. They're going to ask and create questions. In IB, we call them factual questions, conceptual questions, and debatable questions along the way. So we're going to teach them how to develop these questions as they're researching. And then, of course, the research skills. They're going to plan and create a proposal, and there's a process journal they're going to go through this with, and they're going to plan their action. What do they think? And a lot of it is about process, not product. So if sometimes things don't always play out the way we want them to, right? But then it's the process and the learning process along the way that's the most important part here. So thinking about taking action and using those self-management skills along the way to document that action through this process journal. Then the criterion C is around action, taking action. So what are they going to do because of this learning and because of their research? And how are they going to communicate what they learned is key. So how are they going to communicate this through their presentation? What form of presentation are they going to take on? And then reflection. Reflection is going to go throughout the whole project. So thinking about steps along the way and then their final reflection. And if you look at these 4 criteria, you can see the skills that we just mentioned on the previous slide. The criteria are scored at 8 points in a rubric scale. And what we'll do as a school is do what we call standardization of grading, where we come to a consensus about what an 8 looks like. This is what an 8 will look like. this is what a 7 would look like, this is what a 6 would look like. And then, so 2 teachers will score the project to give the students a group score. They were able to select themselves.
So what happened was in quarter, not too long ago, last month, I visited all the world studies classes and I spoke to the students about the project and the requirements of the project. And I also spoke to them about selecting appropriate group members. And we gave them clear criteria to think about when selecting an appropriate group member. Are you guys able to motivate each other? When you set deadlines, are you able to respond to those deadlines? Do you have a shared interest? Do you have a shared goal? Do you bring certain strengths to the group that you think will be best matched with others who are part of this group? We went through all of that with the understanding that select your groups wisely because you're working on this project together. Groups cannot be larger than 3, so no larger than 3. To date, we have more than over 250 8th graders who have decided to be in a group, and so their groups are formed as we speak. So we're hoping that they took this criteria to determine exactly who they're going to work with and who probably a friend, but it won't be a good idea for us to work together in this project. And so that's how they selected their groups. So they got that criteria, they selected their groups, but they also have an option of working by themselves. So that was also presented to them as well too. Okay, yes.
How many weeks? Because it's only 2 quarters. So how many weeks is that about?
IB says that the project should probably take students about 15 hours total to do.
So how would they get enough research to present a project?
Some of it's going to be independently
Right,
too.
so most of it will be independent. So the in-school structure, which is the JAG time, that's when the staff member is actually meeting with the group or the individuals to provide the coach. But we express to them that the bulk of their project will have to take place outside of the school building because it is supposed to be an independent project as stated by IB. So roughly,
And then you said it was you guys were concentrating on the process and not the product. I didn't understand that. If this is
So we're trying to teach them the process of learning and discovery and working through a problem or solution to get to an action piece of it. So sometimes we'll have, I'm going to give you an example, a student in another school wanted to create his own boat.
Okay.
He had a slab of wood from a tree trunk, and it was one of his passion was to think about somebody. Grandfather was a woodworker. Well, the boat never really came to float. But he had the process and the product, wasn't there, but the process and his researching and his planning and, it was all there, but the boat never really floated.
Okay.
But it wasn't about the boat, it was about researching and figuring out. And
So in grading him, you're not grading him
On whether the boat
whether it
floats.
floats. Okay.
You're never going to forget that boat floats.
I have 2 different questions. You said about 15 hours. Is that per student? So you're thinking that this is not a huge, that's not a huge amount of time?
It's not a huge amount of time, and the personal project for a 10th grader should take about 25 hours. And it's not a huge amount of time, but you still have to, they put a time limit in there because schools wanted to hear a time limit. Some schools stretch it a whole year. Some schools stretch it just a couple weeks. But IB put a time on it because so many schools were asking, give me a time.
Right. And then the second follow-up is, you said it was graded on the 8-point scale. Is this a GPA impact? So they'll either pass 8th grade and get out, or they won't?
We want them all to do it, right?
Oh, no, we
Yes.
understood that.
There's the learning that's just behind it. So
Yeah.
it's the learning that's behind it. So there's no impact on the GPA, but it's just experience of going through an inquiry cycle. So
And
if there's a problem that I investigate, I find research on this information, I plan out what I'm going to do, and I actually do something about it. And throughout that entire process, I'm reflecting about the new learning, if there are obstacles that I encounter, and I reflect about that. If there are skills that I'm using to support my project, I reflect about that. So it's just the opportunity of them leading their own inquiry. Because time and time again, you know, our students are used to teachers driving this inquiry, but this is them driving this inquiry.
So we have the research behind it in MCPS too, that the IB came in and used our schools, and we looked at students who completed a personal project and students who didn't have the opportunity to complete the personal project or didn't finish it. So we have the research that shows that those students who really did well on the extended essay for the diploma program, because they have that persistence, that, you know, that self-management skills, and then they also did well in AP and IB schools. So we're looking at, like, what are the benefits of the personal project and the community project, because it is not a GPA thing, right? But we know that when we teach students this type of skills and have them work through this type of learning, that it teaches something more than a 0.5 GPA.
No, and I think that's important because it's too much pressure as it is. And adding GPA to this while we also are looking at so many high schools,
Right.
it's insane.
Right.
So, one last question. So I'm going to use her example. So if we want to do girls empowerment and teach them fashion and the right way to dress, would it be the whole process and thinking through, but not necessarily that they went out to the community
And put on a show.
right?
But they
But
have,
if they did, is
They
that
have to
okay?
have that action.
they have to take action.
Okay.
So they have to do something. If they have identified that there is a need, and I research, they do something to address something. You can't solve it all, but you could do something within your capacity to address that. So they do
It could
take
be
action.
PSA.
And it could be, you know, volunteering someplace, it could be designing something, it could be conducting research and sharing that research out to the greater public. It could be advocating on behalf of a group. So there are a variety of ways to take action, and they do something in order to show that this is a need, this is what I think should be done to address that.
Hi, you mentioned that the passion project isn't happening anymore, and that this is a new program. Has this program been used in any schools in Montgomery County thus far, and what was its success rate?
Yeah, so the personal project has always gone on in the 10th grade, and the community project, which has been a different version of this, the passion project, has been going on in Newport Mill and Silver Spring International.
But this project, this project, because my son was in school maybe 5 years ago, and passion project was optional. So this project where the 13-year-olds are filling out all this information, has this project been done?
It's a different version of the passion project. So the passion
So this
project,
hasn't been done though?
yeah. No, this is brand new to community. Community project and the personal project is not new to IB, but it's been redefined in IB.
Right.
So what you're seeing is the redefined version of
So we don't have,
But I will say this is our 3rd year of all of our students at this school doing the project. So last year was called the Passion Project, all the 8th graders did it.
Right.
The year before,
Right.
it was called the Passion Project, all the 8th graders did it. It is the exact same format, so the students also got that as well
You
too.
did.
They also got that, however, now the focus is on a community need. So nothing has changed about the process, it's that we're just redirecting the focus on a community issue and taking action in the community.
And IB is encouraging us to make sure that all students have access to it and all students are participating within it, 10th grade and 8th grade.
are their team leader, their teacher, for the 3 of them, are they helping them come up with topics, or is that something that should be done at
So
home?
we're going to talk about later in the presentation about how parents can support, because it's a combination of both. A lot of kids right now, I shared with some people, they're all, oh, I'm doing homelessness. Well, I guess we're all doing homelessness because they don't really understand there are other issues out there where you can actually impact change on. So you know, that was the first thought that came to their minds. So when coaching starts to take place in Q2, it will be on the coach as well as home to touch base with students to figure out exactly, are you interested in this topic long enough to carry it through 2+ quarters, okay?
Is your good way?
So now we are going to show you a video of an 8th grader last year who did her project. And you will see her presenting on her project. She's going to call it a passion project, but truly it was a community project. And we shared this video with the 8th graders, and I said to them, you do not have to buy a plane ticket and go to any country to complete this project, because she did that for her project, only because of the family connection, and she saw a need in her home country, and so she took action in that place. But I shared to students that there are lots of issues in this community that you can focus your energy on, and you can also equally take action and be successful in that. We wanted to show you an example of the 8th grader community project, okay? So we can't hear. So I will say this, that the presentation will be placed on the school website, because I don't want to troubleshoot right now. So you can go to the school website and you can hear the video at that later time. Okay, so I do apologize for that. But let me just give you a little bit about what she did, okay, for her project. So her name is Sophia Dodlow, and last year when she did her project on international community service. So when she was in 4th grade, she went to Cuba to visit some family members, and she noticed that in her family's neighborhood there was a playground, and the playground was run down. Lots of the equipment was rusted. It was just not safe for kids to play on, and so kids were not playing on the playground. And she was very troubled by that. So fast forward a few years, in 7th grade, she comes to SSI and she hears about something called a passion project. And she automatically thinks, this is what I want to focus on, not really knowing what it entailed, but just knew that she could do her project on absolutely anything. So in 8th grade, she starts to actually do research more on this issue and research how to renovate a playground. So she starts a GoFundMe page, and through the help of her family, she's able to raise $4,600. And using that money, she and her family, they make connections with people who also live in Cuba in that community, and they get together with a lot of the other locals to renovate the playground. So her family took one trip in around winter break around December, and another trip in the springtime. And during both trips, they sent lots of different equipment to renovate the playground, like swing sets and shovels and other things that the kids might find useful in that environment. And so what they ended up doing was repainting the playground, sanding down a lot of the rusted equipment, and just putting in some of the swings that were broken, putting in new swings in that community. She had lots of pictures to document the fact that she took action on an issue that was of importance to her. And not only that, she was able to learn that you can impact change if you believe in something, that if you plan something out and you stick with it and you seek help when needed, that you can actually do something to support others. And she spoke a lot about how she learned that you can't rely on other people, you rely on yourself when you want to see something done, and that you have to balance not only the demands of being an 8th grader, but also the demands of this project, and just going through the different things she had to do on a day-to-day basis to kind of stay on top of her project and not let her work get behind her. So I apologize for the speaker, but we'll put this up on the website for you to actually access the presentation. Okay? But again, you don't have to buy a plane ticket. You don't have to do. You can do your project here at SSI. You can do your project in Silver Spring or Maryland. You can keep it local in order to fulfill this project as well. Okay? So earlier, I spoke about how we spoke to students about selecting teammates to work on the project, and we shared with students criteria for them to think about when selecting their group mates. This is what they received, this particular information. And the idea was that we strongly encourage them to work in groups because research has shown that developmentally, our students are social learners and they benefit from working and collaborating with one another. And that's what the IB wants to see at this stage of the project. But there's always the option of working individually as well too. We also shared with them that all 3 members should be on board. Like, you guys should be able to function well as a group. All 3 members, that's the largest a group can be, will have the exact same staff coach. So if there are 3 students, I might be their coach. We're not going to separate them with 3 different teachers because they should be getting the exact same message so they can go forward and actually put some of the feedback the coach is giving them into practice. We told the students that using the criteria, if unfortunately something goes wrong and the group implodes or just something goes wrong with the group, that after this particular day, after December 22nd, they will now have to work individually because we have roughly about 2 more months before the project will be due, and we don't want to do a lot of shuffling around, especially because the entire staff is involved in this kind of coaching. So we gave them this deadline to keep in mind that if something unfortunately goes wrong, you have until this time period to let me know that either you're in a new group or after that time period you'll be working by yourself. Okay? And that's okay because they'll still get the project done. So Libby talked earlier about a process journal. This project is taking place over the course of about 2 quarters. And throughout this entire process, they should be documenting their learning. So when they're doing research, they should be putting that information somewhere. When they're reflecting on what course of action to take to address the issue, they should be putting that information somewhere. When they're planning out a schedule or when they're going to meet with their group members or if, let's say I thought I was going to do something on homelessness, but later on we figured out that we want to focus our attention on recycling. If there was a change in plan from their thinking of what they thought they wanted to do, they should document everything because we want to see the learning. We want to see the process of what they went through throughout this entire project. So again, it's about the process that we're strongly encouraging. So students know that they can choose any way to document this learning. They can determine if they want to write all their notes, their reflections, their planning in a notebook. They can determine if they want to maybe start a blog and record that information there. If they want to use Google Docs and share that communication, that's up to them because they can best speak to what process works for them when communicating their learning. So that's called the process journal. They're documenting their entire process in this project. This is a must. This is not optional. They must have a process journal because from this process is where they actually get the evidence to show us that they have done research, that they have planned, that they have taken action, and that they have reflected. Okay?
The process journal, are they doing that independently or collaboratively? Are
So-
they talking together about what's going on?
So IB has stated that if you are a group, you can share a process journal. So they can work, so I share with students that if you're working as a group, one great method would be using Google Docs so that you guys can share it, you can update it as you need. There's no format to this because sometimes learning isn't nice and orderly. There's no format to that. They just record their learning throughout the process. Okay. Yes.
Can their process, does it have to be something that's written? For instance, can they record each other having discussions
Yep.
about?
Yep, they can.
So it's
How-
video?
Yep, it can be video. However, IB has also limited the amount, so they can use up to, I believe, in 30 seconds of that video when they're trying to show evidence for each criterion. Because
Okay.
when they put the entire thing together, at the end of this, they should have evidence to show us they've investigated from their process journal, they've planned, they've taken action, they've reflected. And so they should, the more information they have in the process journal, the better. Right? So we're saying to them, whenever you're working on the project, update the process journal. So don't use it as a afterthought, use it when you're right there working on the project.
And that's where those skills will come out to play.
So, how frequent is the JAG time rotation? Is it every 8 days or something?
Mhm.
Okay, every 8 days. So they will meet with their coach every 8 days,
Right.
every 8 school days?
So if I have a group of students and I have indicated to my students that every JAG 3 we will be meeting together, then the students will meet with their coach in some designated location to work on their project, okay? Now, we also share with students that JAG time is only 25 minutes, right? So twice a month, I might have a JAG 3, that's 50 minutes in a month. That might not be enough time for them to actually get the attention that they might need on the project. So we also strongly encourage them to email. Like, talk to your coach outside of JAG time. You want to stop by during lunch or see if you can make appointments with your coach after school. That's also highly encouraged. We definitely told coaches as well too that they should share their email addresses with with their students so that communication is ongoing. We want to maintain communication throughout this entire project. Okay.
Can the students email each other? Isn't that like against the rules, if they're not supposed to email?
In school, I think they have their ID. They can, I believe that if their ID at the .net, then
Right,
they
yeah.
can communicate
They
that way.
can.
But if they're emailing outside the school, I think they use their personal accounts for that. But they can also email the staff members at their, .org accounts. It doesn't matter.
Because I told my daughter once, like, email that person, and then she's like, oh, we're not allowed to email each other, we can only email teachers. So I was like, oh, so she didn't want to get in trouble.
Right, they're told
I'm
they
not
can't
sure.
email each other, you can only email teachers.
Yeah, that's what they
Unless
told
it's
us.
shared in a class specifically.
In this particular project, they will be allowed, especially if they're working in groups, like they would have to communicate, So if they email each other, then hopefully they have personal email addresses as well too, that they can use to communicate if there's any LCPS regulation with the school email addresses that were provided.
Just thinking classroom, you advised us to set up a classroom for the community project, which allows us to go back and forth through that classroom setting. So it kind of takes care of the need for email.
Yes.
Wait, I'm sorry, you set up a
We were advised to set up a
Google
Google Classroom
Classroom
just
just
with
for
our
that
little
project.
group of 3 or 4
Okay,
that we're coaching.
okay,
Yeah.
that would do it.
We would do it that
So
way.
that will be done, and they can use Google Classroom to
I
communicate.
think that's your most seamless way to do it. Yep.
But that hasn't been done yet, it will be done.
Should they be writing in their process journals now with this preliminary process?
So I've been doing my morning announcement campaigns where I'm like, what are you doing now? You should be researching. Or next week we're going to do information, little blurbs about different ways to take action. But officially, we're starting Q2. Right now, they can do research. Like, there's no harm in them, especially if you are unsure about what topic you want to focus this project on. You can start maybe linking up needs. We do have a segment here where we're asking parents to talk to their children about potential areas that they can take action on as well. This presentation, as well as other documents, will be placed on the school website, and one other document that will be placed there is a handout that lists various ways to take action, so that might help a student think about a topic for their project as well. Yes.
There are a lot of nonprofit community organizations. Do they, are they invited to the school so that the students then have a broader perspective of what kinds of other projects or community work they could be considering and topics for this project?
Well, we hope to use this parent database as a way to start to just to get ideas out on particular issues or topics that students perhaps can link into, especially if they're unsure. But there's no formal plan right now to invite community organizations to speak to students, but that's not to say that that's like out the window. But we want to start with, because we know that the community has a lot of resources, and there are a lot of people in this community where you have done research or you have experiences on many topics that connect to this project. We want to touch that first.
I was asking because it's one thing to just read about something, it's another thing to have a field trip, something, or people come to you so that then children really have a clear understanding of what this means. If you have a large population, maybe you're asking about homelessness or, just some general topics, that's what I was wondering.
We had other schools do that with, and it's very possible, so the mentors took or got permission from the parents and, had a little field trip of some sort, either to the SPCA or to Manna Foods or places like that. The options are kind of endless in this area for students to take action right here in our community. So it's not impossible, but the students we want the students to start thinking about what they want to do and bring it up, so it's self-initiated of them.
No, I understand that. I was just asking as far as opening up their ideas so that then they're more aware of right now it seems like they might be considering only a small amount of topics and just to broaden that. That's what I was, again.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's maybe next year, you could start introducing some topics to the students maybe in like the second quarter of 7th grade, because I'm listening to my daughter now and she's telling me some topics that her group is talking about and I'm like, oh God, no. But, so maybe, because they don't know, and I think that they need to be introduced to the different, areas that they could make a difference in, because they don't know.
But it's not hard what they're trying to do. I mean, they're trying to step into the world that they don't know or understand and trying to make an impact and they're just trying to give it a shot, right? So I hear what you're saying when I hear the topic and I'm like, okay, I gotta be quiet and sit on my hands and sort of see where it goes and let them sort of, give it a shot.
So we are going to do something like that on a smaller scale, just introduce topics next week before we actually start, through morning announcements before we actually start in quarter 2. So if there's something that sparks their interest, but a lot of times, so many things that they, might decide to do. So a lot of times it's just that conversation with the coach and just trying to figure out, do you have an interest and how can that translate into doing something to support you? Okay, so there are 2 presentations the students engage in. In April 2017, and the plan is still not solid just yet, but students will do a formal presentation, all students, that's a requirement of that. So they're in a group of 3, they present together. Of course, if they're working individually, they also present by themselves. So this first presentation will take place during the school day where we're trying to just provide exposure to our 6th and 7th grade students so they can see what they will have to do by the time they get to 8th grade with this first presentation structure that we're still building. The second one is a showcase, and that's an evening presentation where the 8th grade students and their family members are invited, and during this showcase, students present their project and what they did in their project to the community. So this is more of a parent event, the second one, and the day one is focused towards the student body. But that's not to say that if you want to see your child present on the day that no, you can't come in, right? But that's how we're distinguishing between those presentations, okay? But the presentation is a requirement for all the 8th grade, okay?
Pretty sure I'm the closer, so something to look forward to. So I'm just gonna go over the role of a coach. Again, Stella said that the role of the coach is something that all of the staff members at Sims are really going to engage in. So that's new and that's different and that's really exciting, and I can speak as a staff member that we're really excited to take on that role. So we are going to meet with students to help clarify their ideas, to help give them some more ideas that they are struggling for. I'm not sure of the need that I want to serve. We're gonna offer strategies to help with research, suggest certain websites, organizations. We're gonna have that awesome PTSA resource so we can guide students over there and say, well, why don't you check out, maybe there's someone who works at NOAA. We're going to be available via email, and I believe that all of us are planning on setting up Google Classroom accounts with our students so that we can be very easily accessed. We are definitely going to be in contact with you. So I think there's a slide coming up, but in November, you should hear from a staff member at this school saying, hi, I am your student's coach. So if December rolls around and you have not heard from a staff member, talk to your kid. You should have heard from a staff member.
So we
Reach out
want
to
to say
us.
to that point that definitely the students, they will have, it will be clear who their coach will be for their project, and that will be through Edline. So when we say you will be able to check their Edline and see who their coach is. So I want to be clear in terms of like that here part, so that you're aware of that. So you'll be able to just check Edline and see who their coach is. And you can contact them, you can email the coach if ever you need to check in. Coaches will be expected to provide feedback as well during interims, so that you can monitor progress of how your child is doing in the project.
And coaches will be contacting you, not only giving you updates, these things are going well, but also if your student is not getting to those JAG 3 appointments that they're supposed to be getting to. We're also going to be looking for academic honesty. At this point, your students know how to create bibliographies. They know how to research, especially by 8th grade. Ms. Hack has done an awesome job with them. So we're just going to make sure that they're living up to the standards that they can live up to. And then we're going to make sure that we are supporting them with the rubrics, because some of the language on the IB rubrics we want to make sure they're super clear on. In general, coaches are here to help your students, not to do the project for them, but to help them. Okay, so these are some expectations that all of the coaches are going to have for your students. It is the student's responsibility to make sure that they are maintaining good contact and arriving to those meetings on time and prepared. We really need students to have detailed process journals, and as we discussed, those process journals can manifest in many, many ways. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but you have a process journal in your lab. If you're taking notes on this presentation, that's a form of processing your learning, right? So it can manifest in a lot of different ways, but they need to show up prepared to discuss their process journals at the meetings with their coaches. And again, this is something where we want students to take ownership of their learning, so we're going to be guiding them, but not actually doing the learning for them. And we are going to still expect, just like content area classes, for students to be turning in their work on time. Okay, so the coach is a support for your student, but then also you are supports for your students. So you can help monitor the progress, as Stella said, through checking Edline, and then reviewing timelines. So there are going to be, so how are they going to find when things are going to be due?
So how will the students know when it's due?
Parents.
Primarily, this information will be posted on, so this timeline will be posted on the school website, so you can check that. The students will also have a student packet that will guide them through the project. So a lot of the materials you can just check online to find that information. For the most part, nothing has changed. If anything has changed, then the coach will know, and the coach will be able to better communicate to parents if there are any problems or if this assignment has been extended back. But this timeline of tasks, that's essentially what we're going to use to guide this project this year, okay?
You also will be able to contact your student's coach, and we now have an awesome feature on Google Classroom where we can invite parents and guardians into Google Classroom. So you should be able to, if that's something that is activated, be able to actually see what's going on in their Google Classroom for the community project. And then it sounds like some of you already are interested in discussing needs within the community with your child, and I think that's an awesome idea. Talk to them about what different new needs maybe you have addressed. So maybe you can bring your note card home and say, hey, I did this really cool activator. This is something I did. What's something you might want to do? And then always check up on that process journal. How's it coming? It should be something that you should be able to see every week that they're adding to it. All right, so these are just all the different ways we've already talked about staying informed. The Google Classroom account, Edline, like communicating with your students, email, and then again, anticipate hearing from the coach by mid-November. And if you don't, then go to Edline, check up on who they are, and shoot them an email. Yeah.
You also said you'll give the kids the package, is
Yeah.
that by the end of October, mid of November?
They're going to get it when they have their first meeting session with their coaches. So the coaches will disseminate that information to them. So we'll make sure, and you know, I can always swing back through classes to make sure that every child has this student packet, and that also will be posted on the school website as well, so you can see their student packet. Okay, and the student packet is primarily there to guide the process of this project, so you can see exactly some of the things that are required of them and the explanation behind that learning.
Okay. Oh, yes.
So for the process journal,
Hi.
excuse me, I guess evaluated by the coach. And if they do Google Classroom, they will have that basically online. Do they have to print and bring a copy, or will the teacher, the coach have their laptop and they can access? Just trying to make sure the accessibility for their meetings will be, if they're using that Google Classroom.
Yeah.
It can be available.
Everything on Classroom can be shared, so I don't see why there would be any need to print things that you could just share with them.
But I will say this, there are some students who prefer to have a notebook.
Yeah.
And if they prefer to have a notebook, then it's their responsibility to bring that notebook to the coaching session. And they're saying this is the best way that I learned to record my information. But I'm sure the vast majority prefer to use some type of digital format. And so the Google platform would be a great way to do that. So we're not, it's up to them in that process. It just has to be one way that they know is best for them for learning.
Talking about that, what is the Noodletools?
So Noodletools is our database that we use for citation and just documenting information. And so students primarily in 6th grade, they start off through English classes, I believe, learning about Noodletools and documenting, but they revisit this in the sciences and studies up until 8th graders. So most of the 8th graders, if not all of them, are very familiar with the Noodletools, and that is how they just document their information. It provides an MOA format for them so that if they found information on a particular topic, they just use a particular formula to actually generate a citing page. Sorry.
Let's say, you said that the students will meet with the coach during a JAG time. Let's say the students are in different classes during that JAG time. How would they all meet with the coach?
So it's based on the coach's availability, because most teachers have a load where they teach 5 out of 8 classes. So for 3 of those JAG periods, they will not be with students. So if I teach 5 classes, well, let's say I don't have a period 4. So I may choose to use my JAG 4 as a time where I'm going to reach out to my students to coach them during that time because I'm without students. So it's based on the teacher's availability that they are determining when they're going to meet with their students.
So they would come to meet with you then?
Yeah.
They would
Yes.
leave their
They would
class
leave their
and come to-
JAG
okay.
target.
So I would say, guys, listen, I'm available, JAG 4,
Yeah.
here's your pass, hand this to your JAG 4 teacher, we're meeting in room 224.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, 224, okay, and then they go.
Right.
Ballpark, how many individuals or groups will each staff member work with?
Roughly 4 to 6.
I'm sorry.
Roughly 4 to 6 students.
Oh, I think it's 4 to 6.
Students, so, yeah, it could be 2 groups, or it could be a group of 3 and 2 individuals, it just depends on how the breakdown works.
I have the message.
Okay.
All right. If folks aren't on the PTSA listserv, there is a sign up at the table in the hall just outside of the media center. If you provide your name and email address legibly, we'll get you subscribed to the listserv right away.
I have a quick thing also for the 8th grade PTSA. We've already had a few people hand in the pink cards. The pink cards are for you to fill out. Just put your name and your email address, fill them out. I'd like to thank Holly and Holly. We have 2 Hollies who've already volunteered. Thanks a lot. And Ashley, thanks for volunteering. Raise your hands. Thank you very much. And please, your name and your email address will be in the back. We really need your help for the 8th grade PTSA. Thanks a lot.
Sincerely appreciate the help. All right, any final questions?